Welcome to Reshair on ESPN 730. For the next hour, your host, Chris Reshair, will bring fresh air to your financial needs. Excite, educate, and empower you to make sound financial decisions. Chris is a seasoned licensed mortgage consultant with Movement Mortgage, equal housing lender, originator license number 117266. Now, here's your host, Chris Reshair.
Welcome to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshair, licensed loan officer with Movement Mortgage. And boy, if you have not listened to Reshair Radio, I'm excited to have another great show. We're back every single week, Sunday mornings at 10 o'clock. And the goal of our show, if you were listening to the intro, is really to excite, educate, and empower Charlotte teens to make sound financial decisions. And that can really range from a variety of topics. We've had financial planners on. I've got a show coming up in a couple of weeks, and we have an estate planner coming on talking about estates and trusts and wills. And we've got real estate agents on the show, home stagers, credit repair people, you name it. But all of that flows back to our Charlotte and the surrounding community getting good information related to finances and making really good decisions. So the goal, as I said, is to get this excitement going, but we do that through bringing on local area experts that will share their wealth of knowledge and help you through that process. And we have themes that flow through each show each and every week, and so it's exciting. So again, welcome to Reshair. I am your show host, and I am a licensed loan officer with Movement Mortgage. Movement Mortgage is an equal housing lender, and my license number is 117266. Got to get those criticals in there. So anyway, just before we jump into our show themes and introduce our guests and our expert contributors, I really wanted to kind of hit a brief moment on the Mortgage Matters segment. And I share this now and again. Mortgage Matters means just things that kind of affect mortgage. I am a licensed loan officer at Movement Mortgage, awesome company to work for. But for those of you, this was kind of an exciting week, maybe not an exciting week, a stressful week, maybe not a stressful week, but we had we have a president-elect, and things are really kind of changing in terms of how the economy is flowing. There's a lot of unknowns right now, but I wanted to mention how that affected our market this week. What we saw is initially we saw a stock market that seemed to be very nervous and scared, and we thought interest rates on mortgages were going to go down. In fact, I heard it on CNN. Anchor said, "Call your mortgage guy, rates are going down." I got into the office, I got set up, and by the time that the market opened, rates actually went up. So the market went from scared to bullish and started performing well. So it's been a volatile week. It's going to be interesting to see what unfolds in weeks and years to come with this new presidency coming in place. But I will say the trend at the end of this week was really rates are starting to climb up. And I say that because people have been on the fence about refinancing, and many people have been on the fence about whether or not I should buy now or later. And at least from my initial gut reaction, my opinion is rates are probably going to start trending upwards. So it's time to get off the fence, make the call. You can always reach me at 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. That will allow me to just do a quick analysis of your situation and get you qualified, whether it's a purchase or refinance. But the trend as a result of the election is now rates are starting to move up. So anyway, that's our Mortgage Matters segment for this morning. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Chris Reshair, your host of Reshair Radio. And what I'd like to do now is slide into introducing our featured guest for today's show. And first, I'd like to, we actually have a realtor panel, which we haven't done this before, but really was excited to kind of come up with this concept and bringing in multiple opinions and different versions of education from realtors. So our realtor panel is an exciting new feature to our show today. And without further ado, I'd like to start with welcoming Erin Kitzmiller from Century 21 Real Estate Consultants. Erin, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Chris. It's great to be here.
I'm excited for you. So 10 years in the business, how do you feel about that?
It's been a fun 10 years, I'll tell you. I got in the business just as it was starting to head the wrong direction. So it's been a wild ride, but an awesome ride and a lot of fun getting to know all kinds of sellers and buyers. It's been a great, rewarding experience.
Cool. So I always like to give our listeners just a snippet of maybe how you got started in the business and wanting to become a realtor.
Well, my mom was actually a real estate agent for 25 years. So I sort of grew up with her in those days, lugging out the MLS books and working with clients and seeing how the business worked. And it was something I knew I wanted to do. I was in the corporate world for about the first 13 years of my adult life and decided to jump ship and get my real estate license and sort of follow that dream versus, following the corporate route. But it's just been fantastic. And
well, it sounds like you've been enjoying yourself, and obviously you really like to do what you do. I can feel that just in the way you answered our questions here. So what do you really like most about being a realtor?
I love that it is different every single day. Even in the business 10 years, hundreds of transactions, not one of them is the same as the one prior. So we learn every day, and I'm a big fan of learning and understanding how people work and how situations work. And that's been probably the most exciting thing, is just that it is different every single day.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you sharing your perspective there. And again, welcome to the show. We're going to move on and introduce Erin Haig with Investor Jackson Christie's. And welcome to the show, Erin.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. So I know that you've got about 6 years experience as a realtor. How are you feeling about that?
I feel great. I was working for other realtors before I became a realtor myself. I was doing their advertising, marketing, and I just really felt like there was a hole. I really wanted to come in and be able to offer people fantastic marketing for their homes, regardless of their price point.
So that gave you some intro into how the industry worked, and then you've been able to apply that to your experience. So
Absolutely.
that is awesome. So believe it or not, we are actually just about out of time for this segment. So what we're going to do, Erin, is we're going to come right back and finish your story and go into our theme. So again, you're listening to Reshair Radio, and stay tuned. We'll be right back for an awesome show. Thanks.
Did you know it has been reported that an estimated 80% of Americans have credit inaccuracies on their credit reports? Most people that have either inaccuracies or existing items that can be negotiated or adjusted do not know what their best score could be until they have found a new home, or buying a new car, or applying for a credit card. Then it's too late, and they have to accept a higher interest rate or lose the opportunity altogether. The time to work on improving your credit score is before you need it. Whether you have a 440, 640, or even a 740 FICO score, there is always room for improvement. The National Credit Care Team is comprised of individuals dedicated to helping the millions of consumers plagued by credit inaccuracies, errors, and fraud. It is our mission to help inform consumers and alleviate the stress of working with creditors and credit bureaus. Together, we can maximize your scores to get the best interest rates possible and save you money. Call now, 303-747-6390. That's 303-747-6390. Or visit us at www.nationalcreditcare.com. Sports fans know that the key to winning the big game is going in prepared. Right now, houses are selling fast. So if you're in the market for a new home purchase, don't just be prepared, be Movement Mortgage prepared. Charlotte's leading mortgage lender, Chris Reshair at Movement Mortgage, will tee you up with a free, fully underwritten upfront pre-approval. Call Chris today at 704-277-4463. Go into the game prepared with Chris Reshair of Movement Mortgage.
Welcome back to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host and licensed loan officer with Movement Mortgage. If this is the first time you're tuning into Reshair Radio, our show really is about exciting, educating, empower Charlotte teens to make sound financial decisions. And we do that by helping our listener each and every week by bringing on local area experts. We bring them to the studio, and they bring all kinds of great topics and information to you. And if you were tuning into our previous segment, we actually have a realtor panel today. And we've got Karen Kitzmiller here from Century 21 Real Estate Consultants. And we also have Erin Haig with an Investor Jackson Christie's. And we were just introducing you, Erin, to our listeners. And you were talking a little bit about your experience. You've been 6 years as a realtor, but you also had years before that sort of helping marketing in real estate and so forth. So why don't you tell our listeners this morning, how did you get started in real estate?
Well, my mom was a realtor in
Okay, so
Oklahoma.
that's the theme of the day, right?
It is the theme of the day. And so in Oklahoma, during 19% interest rates, which we can't even come close to imagining.
Yikes.
And so she had to be extremely creative, and she had to figure out ways to get people into houses. So she did trades, and I saw her, how creative she had to be. And back then, the marketing and the advertising wasn't nearly like it is today.
Where you couldn't reach as many people
That's
because
right.
it was the old-fashioned way. It was knocking doors and...
Absolutely. So she had to figure out how to do that and how to get people into houses, which would make your job extremely hard back when 19% changed everything.
I can't imagine. I have people belly aching. 3.75, that sounds high. I'm going to call 17 other lenders. I'm like, 3.75 is like unbelievable, whatever, you know. And I'm not technically allowed to talk about rates over the air, but obviously we're just using this as a silly example. This is not a quote to anybody in America. If you're listening, I do not need my compliance department, whipping me with letter over the head. So anyway, all right. Well, that's an interesting experience. So that's kind of how you got started. I'm assuming
Absolutely.
there were days that you helped pull signs out of yards and help clean houses and do whatever you needed to do.
Everything and anything.
All right. And that's the way a realtor's life is. I really feel like that the average consumer or person in the public has no idea how hard a realtor works. Am I right, ladies?
Amen. Thank you.
Okay. Like I see it. I mean, last year over 90 realtors sent me business. And let me tell you, every realtor that I work with works their butt off. And they don't even have a designated day off.
No, there's not even a designated hour off.
Right. There's not even a designated hour. So kudos to our realtor panel here this morning. Before we wrap that up, your sort of intro, but tell me a little bit, Erin, about what you like most about being a realtor.
Well, I love the relationships that I build. I am a realtor who gets a lot of referral business. That's the main way I get business. And so I build long-term relationships with people, and I love being able to be part of their lives and help them reach their goals. And so I've really enjoyed that. I also really love seeing the houses. That's kind of an observer.
I know that's my wife. It's like, let's go to open houses this weekend for fun. It's like, okay, that's cool. So I get it. That's the fun part of the real estate. And the mortgage person never gets to see the house. You're like, all this work and what is the house like?
I've never
that's
thought
kind of the
about
fun.
that.
That's the fun part. So we do get to see pictures on the appraisal, but anyway, all right, so let's kind of jump over. Shelley Walker from Ballantyne Staging and Design back. You are an expert contributor or what we call a repeat offender. And Shelley, you support Reshair Radio on a regular basis. Welcome back to the show.
Good Sunday morning.
That's right. So Shelley, briefly tell us a little bit about your business and what you do.
Sure. Well, unlike the trend of the ladies, my mom was not a realtor, but she could absolutely create a beautiful space. And we joked before about it starting at the Barbie Dream House stage at age 10, but
that's right.
I've always enjoyed creating beautiful spaces and solving problems for homeowners. It really a very stressful time. I mean, I'm sure the ladies would agree. It's very difficult, sometimes very emotional, selling your property. So I want to make that an easy process for those individuals to help them sell the home faster and for more money.
Perfect. And you too worked, am I right, in the corporate world in the beginning too?
I did for many years, a similar industry to Karen, and really enjoyed it. The skills that I learned are very applicable today to what I do, but was happy to put that behind me and really move on to something I'm very passionate about.
Cool. Well, I understand with Ballantyne Staging Design, you really have a professional company. You have a phenomenal reputation with the realtors in our community. And we're going to be hearing more from you later in the show as you really kind of take control and ask our panel of agents here in the studio today a little bit about the staging process and so forth. So we'll hear more from you a little bit later. Adam, let's do a quick intro to you. Adam Kuna with National Credit Care. Welcome back, man.
Hey, thanks so much, Chris.
So, tell us a little bit about National Credit Care and what you do for our listeners. And we're going to feature a segment, a little bit about what you do at the very end, but let's do a short intro here.
Sure. I guess, a good segue, just kind of like you guys are working to get the home prepared to sell it faster. We're trying to get the credit fixed up so you can get into your home faster. So we're looking at how to clean up credit, how to coach on positive elements of the credit that we can build and bolster the score. So that we can get the funds.
And you've been with National Credit Care for how long?
About 6 years now.
6 years. That's great.
Never ends.
That's a good run.
Oh, yeah.
A good run. So Adam actually, I think, dreams in credit algorithms, because he is like a credit genius.
I do. I wake up and I'm wondering if I'm still doing credit repair.
I've had him look at a credit report of one of my clients. He's like, well, if I add up all the installment accounts and add up all the revolving accounts, their credit this and that is 1.2% of this or that, and we need 2 cards open this long, and that'll get us 6.4% more to this, and that'll get the score up another 25 points. So I was like, what did you just say?
You got to put the puzzle together, right?
I mean, he's amazing. So we'll talk a little bit more about your topic later. Glad to have you back on the show and here in the studio this morning. So Karen and Erin, could you give us, our listeners, just a brief intro to kind of understanding where the Charlotte market is today?
Wow, it's a crazy market is what it is. We've had a couple of years now of seeing continual growth in really the amount of buyers that are out there. Decreasing inventory has been the name of the game for 2 years, I would say.
We keep thinking it's going to come back,
We
and
do.
It just hasn't.
We wait for the spring market and
know.
more people to list their houses, and
Yep.
more people do, but just not enough to
Because
accommodate
there's a
all
lot
the
more
buyers out
buyers,
there.
right?
That's
exactly.
right.
So we've got more buyers in the open market than we have sellers, and so it leads to a shortage.
Very much so.
Perfect. Any other trends that our listeners need to understand before we sort of jump into our theme?
I would just say, and this kind of fits with our theme today, and that even though it is technically a seller's market because we have so few inventory, buyers today are still demanding that a house really show well. They don't want to have to do any work on the house. So I think that's a nice little transition into what our subject is today.
And I call that the HGTV
generation.
trend,
Yes.
right?
It is
Generation.
so much.
So,
That's exactly what it is. They don't even want to paint right now.
yeah, well, that's
It's true.
That's work, Erin. Come on. I have to pick colors. I have to go out to Home Depot, get paint. Well, there are people that actually do that. I do think there's another element to the HGTV trend, and that is there are more do-it-yourselfers today as well. But really, that the modern day buyer really is kind of used to seeing the finished product and is hoping for that curtain to roll back, right? When you show the house and open that door so that it looks like something they just saw on TV. And even now, I go into attorneys' offices, you go to get your hair cut. I mean, it doesn't matter. These shows are plastered all over the city. You can't go anywhere without seeing a TV on the wall and somebody's flipping some home somewhere.
Well, and it seems like they're either willing to do a lot of work and they're willing to take on a big project, or they're willing to do absolutely no work. From what it's in Charlotte, it seems like there's not kind of a middle ground.
Not a lot in the middle. Okay, perfect. So let's roll into our theme so that we can get actually through the theme here today. So our theme is really preparing your home for sale, and we're really going to be talking about 6 key steps to prepping your home for sale. So if you're listening to the show for the very first time or just now, you're listening to Reshair Radio. I am your show host, Chris Reshatar, and we have several realtors here in the studio. We've got a stager and a credit repair person, but we want you to know that if you have any interest, if there's anything that we're sharing with you today that you want to learn more about, or you need to utilize any of our experts here, their services, you can call me at 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. Text me, and you can just say, I need an agent, or I need Shelly to stage my home, or I need Adam to fix my credit, whatever it might be. And you're also welcome to text me if you need a mortgage loan. That's cool too, right, guys? But nonetheless, you need to know that we're here to be a resource to you. We come with good information. So let's kind of jump into our theme. Like I said, we're talking about preparing your home for sale, 6 key steps. And this really is going to go to Karen and Erin as our panel here this morning. The pricing discussion is really the first key thing that we want to talk about, and that's pricing the home. And with sort of keeping in perspective that a home that's staged versus a home that's not staged, and how maybe you would approach properly pricing that home. So if one of you maybe wants to jump in and talk about maybe the difference between a staged and a non-staged home.
Well, it starts with, first of all, is it lived in or is it empty?
Okay.
So
that's maybe a better way of saying it.
Well, if the house is lived in and it has people that are living there, I always feel like, especially in this market, that you really have to come in and you have to take time. And a lot of times it takes a lot longer than people anticipate. It takes at least a month
to get the house prepared.
To get the house prepared, and because there's just really deep down cleaning. There's going through. Shelly will come in and she does a report, and she helps put everything together and tells you exactly what needs to happen to get that house ready so that you can get that house sold as quickly as possible and for the highest possible price. And then if you have an empty house, then there's a discussion about should you put furniture in it?
Got it.
And how much does that cost? And which rooms need to be staged to make the most of that house.
Perfect. And Karen, let me ask you this question. Do you see, in your experience, difference in how you would price a home if it's had the staging versus maybe an empty home?
I do, and that's a little bit of a complicated question.
You got it. You got it under control here.
The short answer could be yes, but I think we as realtors do also focus on what net are we getting for our sellers, and even if we priced a house the same staged versus unstaged, if it is staged, that seller I'd be willing to bet is going to net more money in their pocket because a house is going to sell more quickly, and oftentimes it's going to get multiple offers or at least closer to list price if it's show worthy, it shows well, and buyers walk in and immediately know that the value is there. But having said that, certainly, as Erin was mentioning, if a house is lived in and it's cluttered and dirty, I will not put a price on that as high as I would if that seller is willing to go through the effort and the work to declutter, to clean up the house, to bring in somebody like a Shelley. She is remarkable at what she does to get that house ready. It will bring more money.
Perfect. And I know when we were kind of prepping for the show, you had mentioned that even when you're pricing a home, the market trend can make it more difficult to properly price somebody or make it a little harder. Tell us a little bit about, in this pricing discussion we're having, what that means in terms of market data and market trends.
The way that we look at pricing homes today, I do feel in a market that we've been in, which has been increasing. So our average sales price has been increasing. Days on market's been decreasing. We have to pay a lot more attention to competition nowadays. In the 5 years ago, we were looking at what has sold in your neighborhood and maybe what hasn't sold in your neighborhood, what expired, what was withdrawn. But today we also have to look at where do you fit in the market.
And maybe what's for sale and active in the neighborhood.
That's right. What is your competition today? Because how do we compare against your competition? And there's some sellers out there who want to push the market and want to price really, really, really high. But even in this market, that still can be very damaging to a seller.
Right, especially if we don't have an appraisal to support it. As
Correct.
It is in a rising value marketplace, the appraiser's already stretching
really
a little bit.
It is.
Just to support what he or she needs to make it a valid appraisal.
Well, and if you get it priced correctly and you get it market ready, you're going to get really close to that price. But there's data to support that if you price it too high and or it's not market ready, then you're actually going to be a lot lower than had you just started at the correct market price.
Great point. Great point. So really appreciate you sharing that. So any other thoughts on the pricing discussion before we roll into our next component or key step to getting your home prepared to sell?
I just think in Charlotte, I really do think that it's almost mandatory to get your house ready for market. They aren't selling. They will sit on the market even if they're a good house a lot of times.
Well, if the goal is to put a for sale sign on the house, don't you want to sell it?
Yes,
right?
That's exactly
I don't know.
right.
Motivation is a big thing.
Maybe I'm missing something. So
it is a lot of work getting it ready. So I think that's the problem.
All right, cool. It is a lot of work, but you're breaking it down for us here this morning, and I do appreciate that. So we've just got a couple of minutes before we take a quick break. Again, you're listening to Reshair Radio. If you're hearing anything that interests you and you need to connect with a realtor on the panel, Shelley, our awesome home stager, Adam, our credit repair person, you name it, all you need to do is shoot me a quick text message and say, I need you. Tell me what it is you need. I'll make sure that we connect you with one of these great professionals here after the show on Monday. My number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. This is a great time to take a quick break. Please stay tuned. Again, we're talking about preparing your home for sale, 6 key steps. So stay tuned. We're with Reshair Radio. We'll be right back.
When choosing an insurance agency, you want a company you can trust. We are an independent insurance agency that can protect your personal assets, including your home, your business assets, as well as health and insurance needs. A true one-stop solution provider. We do not work for an insurance company. We work for you. As an independent insurance agency, our duty is to our clients' best interests. It is our responsibility to provide you the best service and the best coverage at the best possible price. You will have the added benefit of working with agents who understand your needs. After visiting our website, we will schedule an exploratory appointment to discuss your specific needs. Please visit our website at www.movementinsurance.com. That's www.movementinsurance.com.
Hey, Chris Reshatar here from Reshair Radio with Movement Mortgage. Are you still sitting on a high interest rate mortgage loan? Are you thinking about consolidating, paying off some of those credit card debts, or maybe doing some home improvement? Now's the time to call because interest rates are still at a 40-year low. My number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. I can also be found at themortgagegenius.com. Movement Mortgage is an equal housing lender, NMLS license number 117266. Welcome back to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshatar. Hopefully you've listened to our show before and you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I'm so sorry, but hopefully you're going to learn something anyway, right? So we are talking, we have a panel of realtors here. We've got a great show. If you haven't been listening so far, we've been talking about preparing your home for sale. So if you've got a house to sell, and I don't really care if the house is getting ready to sell for the holiday, spring, or even into next summer, our agent panel has information that you've got to stay tuned for and listen to. They've got great sound advice to really help you have that home ready to sell. We talked about key step number 1, which is the pricing discussion, really talking about how you properly price a home, whether you've got it prepared to sell and ready and staged, or a home that maybe is vacant, and even looking at market trends and how we properly price a home in a market where that's hot in Charlotte. But now we're really going to kind of go into the repairing of your home as we prepare it to sell, maybe doing some updating. We maybe add an oh my to that, like yikes. But at the end of the day, you want to look your best when you get ready to sell your home. So let's talk a little bit about, and I would assume Karen and Erin, that when you have a client, maybe one of our listeners that needs your help, that's going to give us a call, right? Yes, they're going to give us a call, but you're going to go out and do a general assessment of that property. So tell us what that step typically looks like for both of you.
So when I go out to meet with a seller, certainly I want to walk through the house inside. I want to walk around the house outside. We talk through things along the way that are going to be helpful. And one key point to remember, without getting into the details, is when a buyer comes to your house, they're going to look at things that you don't look at every day. And so if the baseboards are dirty, or if you have a piece of wood rot around the front door, they're going to notice that, and they're going to wonder what else they don't see. And so I make suggestions before I bring Shelley in of things that really need to happen, because this is what the buyers are seeing. I'm looking at it through a buyer's eye when I do that initial assessment.
Perfect. And Erin?
That's about the same thing. When I come in, a lot of times I do come in with Shelley and we go over everything. And then I have Shelley actually do a report, and then we can kind of
and Shelley is our home stager extraordinaire who's in the studio
fantastic.
Here with us.
Thank you, Chris. She does such a good job. And she also, it's hard. It's very emotional, the staging piece, and having someone come in and tell you that there's something wrong. And that's not at all what it is. There's a certain way that you live in a home, and then there's a certain way that you sell a home.
That's right.
That's great. A really good point.
And so when Shelley comes in, she has a really good way, and I try to as well, to talk to you about, okay, these are the things that, although they are perfect for you, we need to appeal to the most buyers, and make it as neutral as we can, and more like a model home is what we're looking for. And that's not what you would never live in a model home, because they're very sterile.
Right.
But that's trying to what we're going to create. So we're going to talk about the repairs and the updates, and if there's certain things that you need to do, do you really have to repair them? Well, that's going to come in the due diligence process, in the repair
home inspection. Right.
Absolutely. So that's going to come anyway. So we might as well have it fixed. The thing I always think about is, if you can see something that is wrong, then that buyer is going to say, well, if I can see that, then what else is there that hasn't been fixed?
Absolutely.
So you want to make sure that everything that your eye can see is already repaired before
Right,
they
because
even
it's
walk
really their
in.
first impression.
It is their first impression, absolutely. You want, you don't want any cobwebs. You want them to think that you keep this house in absolutely perfect condition.
All right. So either way, both of you are going to go in and do a general assessment. You may assess at that point whether the house needs to be staged or not. Well, Shelley, we'll talk more about that later. But you're looking at the curb appeal, the condition, any obvious repairs, and you're going to try to make some basic recommendations. What about a pre-inspection? Those of you, I'm sure everyone here in the studio knows Preston Sandlin from Home Inspection Carolina. He is also an expert contributor who's on Reshair Radio on a regular basis, and he really talks about people that are getting ready to sell their home should consider doing a pre-inspection to maybe determine some of those hidden repairs that might show up as a surprise once the home's on the market. What are your thoughts?
I think it's really important right now. And that's kind of changed, I think, in the last few years. But the first thing is that there's a lot of little things like in your crawl space. A lot of houses in South Charlotte or in Charlotte have crawl spaces.
Yeah, you've got friends in crawl spaces.
Frenemies.
Yes. Yeah, frenemies is about right. And crawl spaces can really blow up a sale.
Right.
And so you want to make sure, and there's a lot of crawl space problems.
And Karen, what are your thoughts there?
I would say with the way today's contract is, when a buyer buys a house, they're actually buying that house as is. The seller is not required to make any repairs.
That's a good perspective to share. Because we go in and go, fix it all.
Exactly.
I'm not buying this house.
Exactly. So if I can have a seller who has said, I've had this pre-inspection done, I've made the repairs, a buyer is that much more comfortable entering into a contract with that seller, knowing that, there's nothing major, some minor repairs have been completed, and they can move forward with the contract.
Perfect. And if you're just tuning in again, you're listening to a show, we're talking about ways to prepare your home for sale. We're talking about step number 2. In that is maybe considering to do a pre-inspection. So kudos to Home Inspection Carolina, Preston Sandlin. If you need a home inspection, just shoot me a quick text and we'll get you taken care of and hooked up with Preston. My number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. He can come out and do that pre-inspection before you list your home for sale. All right, let's go to one more component there in terms of, kind of preparing the home. It's never too early to get started. So kind of what's the perspective behind that? Because I may not want to list my home for sale until the spring because I know that's when it's a good time. What am I supposed to be doing now? I'm getting ready for the holiday.
It's going to take longer than you think.
Always, every time.
So you might be discussing what updates do we want to do. You might be willing, and you're sort of a toss-up of, do we update this or do we update that? Bring us in now. We can help with what today's buyer is looking for, and we can look at it, as we've said before, through that buyer's eye, so that you have 4 or 5 months to get all of these projects completed, because it will take longer than you think.
Perfect. Very good. So we're going to roll into step number 3, which is really kind of considering the staging and decluttering. So I'm going to toss the football over to Shelley here in our ESPN studio and have you kind of take the mic and talk with our panel here about decluttering.
We like destaging. That means it's sold.
That's exactly right.
Okay, good. Well, go ahead. You jump in, Shelley.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. So, yeah, it's interesting as I was listening to the ladies. Charlotte's a really unique market. I had shared with the listeners before that I had 2 companies, one in Philadelphia and one in Charlotte. And Charlotte deals with a lot of new construction. And so that makes people very anesthetized to the home that they live in, right? But at the second point, they want a move-in ready home. So think about it like an interview. You're going to wear your best suit, you're going to prepare ahead of time, and you want to get that job fast, and you want the most money you can get. Well, now your house is about to be interviewed by a lot of potential buyers. So the art of staging is really about merchandising that home for maximum impact, and again, to get that faster sale.
Wow. I mean, could you have said that any better?
Right?
No,
What's that
not
was
at
like?
all. I was like, that's good.
I know. If you need a stager, you better call Shelley. That's all I got to say.
Yes, you better.
All right. So what's decluttering? Why don't you jump in with that?
Yeah, well, decluttering is different than staging. And so I wanted to maybe ask Karen, with her experience, what do you see the difference between decluttering and actually doing a full merchandise staging as?
So to me, decluttering is more about getting your stuff out. Again, you live in a home differently than how you sell a home. And I often like to tell my sellers that you you decorate a home to live in it, you stage it to sell it. So the first, I really look at decluttering as the first step of staging. And how are we removing a lot of personal items, removing those knickknacks, removing the heavy draperies, that sort of thing.
I'm starting to feel pain over here.
Yeah, it's okay. We have a support group for this, Chris. And then pulling in Shelley to then say, okay, how is our furniture positioned, and how does this create flow, and how does it direct the eye to where we want it to go? That's where I see the staging component of a lived-in house. And of course, of a vacant house, every room has to have a purpose. So if it's confusing as to how a room should be set up, that is the ideal time to have Shelley come in and stage that room in a vacant house.
Absolutely. We have a saying, vacant doesn't make it, because it echoes. And like we were saying earlier, critters come in, seasonal changes, it can pick up odors. So absolutely, staging is key. So let me ask Erin, how and when do you introduce staging as a topic? I always like to say that our clients, first and foremost, are the realtors. The sellers have hired you because they trust you. And so from that avenue, how do you introduce staging as a concept to a client?
I think that staging is always part of my discussion. From the first time that I start speaking to a client about getting their house ready for sale and listing their house, for me, staging is really become just a part of my process every single time. Because I think it is that important.
I love that. Absolutely. We just need a few more thousand of you and we'd be good to go. Cool. So, Karen, I bet you have a story or two about a client that was or perhaps was not so receptive to staging, especially in a seller's market, right?
I do. Yep. I've worked with lots, and I approach it similarly to how Erin does. And it's part of the discussion. And I had one seller who couldn't wait to get his house on the market. And I was able to convince him to take a step back and to go through the work. His house was super, super, super cluttered, and just, he was living in it, and boy, was he living in it. So I did convince him, and I helped him see hopefully the value of it. And the result is we're on the market. We got on the market about a month later. And so it was a delayed time frame for him, but the result was we listed it a little bit higher than we had thought we would, and it ended up selling for 103% of list price with 6 offers in a day. So I think
only
that really
6?
Only
Wow.
6. Sorry,
I tried my best. No, absolutely. That's a phenomenal results. And then, Erin, do you ever pay for staging as a professional realtor, or is it the homeowner that pays?
So the way that I work is that I bring in you to give a report and go over everything. And then it's their decision as to what they want to do from there. For example, I had a client who I actually went and saw their house. It was a for sale by owner. It'd been on the market 17 days. I gave feedback I thought that they needed. And so he called to interview me, and I got the listing. Brought in the stager, and we decluttered it, we staged it, we took professional photographs, and then we put it back on the market. And it too, when in 24 hours, we put it higher than he had it on the market. And this is only I think it took him 3 weeks. He did all the painting. I asked him to paint. I asked him to declutter. I asked him to do some other things. He did everything that I asked him to do, and ended up with 3 offers in 24 hours at a higher list price.
There you go.
He did all that work. He did all the heavy lifting. And I mean, when I tell you they worked really hard that weekend, they worked really hard, but they went bullet by bullet.
But that's because they believed you and knew that those would be the results that they would attain. So that's phenomenal. Just to wrap up this segment, Chris, we were talking earlier with the ladies about the reasons that they hire a professional realtor. And I just want to leave you with that same thought, that that's exactly why that you would hire a professional home stager, for the trust, for the results, for the expertise like these ladies garner for their clients every day.
And it sounds like you're going to make potential hire more money on your sale. So
Yes,
it's a win-win.
Absolutely.
More
End
net.
game.
Awesome. Well, we're out of time for this segment. We got one more exciting segment, so please stay tuned. We'll be right back with Reshair Radio. Hey, Chris Reshatar here from Reshair Radio with Movement Mortgage. Are you still sitting on a high interest rate mortgage loan? Are you thinking about consolidating, paying off some of those credit card debts, or maybe doing some home improvement? Now's the time to call because interest rates are still at a 40-year low. My number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. I can also be found at themortgagegenius.com. Movement Mortgage is an equal housing lender and MLS license number 117266. Welcome back to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshatar, licensed loan officer with Movement Mortgage. And as your show host, we bring in each and every week expert contributors, local community professionals, and we're talking today about 6 key elements to getting your home prepared to sell. And we've talked about staging, decluttering, we've talked about repairs, we've talked about pricing your home right. The next component, which is number 4, is cleaning. So, Shelly, why don't you kind of take the reins here and talk a little bit about getting your home ready for sale and how cleaning can impact that. What kind of cleaning are we talking about here?
Well, I can tell you what we're not talking about. We're not talking about my 13-year-old's bedroom.
Right. That's not cleaning. That's covering up.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Moving.
And he's really good at it. But no, cleaning, we're talking about professional cleaning here. We're talking about, having that discussion with the homeowner when they say, well, I just cleaned, But again, as Karen mentioned earlier, they become really anesthetized to the area that they live in and day out. So for the same reasons that they may miss the wood rot, etc., it's really, really important to bring in a professional home cleaning services. And all of us know great people that we work with that can do that very inexpensively. Big bang
Perfect.
for your buck, little money.
And I've been through houses myself, and my wife said, nope, I'm not buying that house. I'm like, it was a great house. She goes, it was dirty.
Dirty.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So
Turns women
Yep,
off like crazy.
absolutely. So, okay, move on to the next one. All right, so number 5, let's talk about professional photography. I don't know the exact statistic, but I'm just going to guess it's 99.9% of people start shopping for a home on the internet, right? And you're looking at pictures. So, why are professional photographs so important?
Go ahead, Erin.
Sorry. So for me, the professional photographs is, if you think about it, just like they're a professional. I take really good photographs and I have a really nice camera, but they come in with like $20,000 cameras. They're
And
wide
light
angle
and
lenses
lights
and lighting, and they know the angles because they do it each and every day. And because that is the people, there are a lot of buyers that won't even go in a house if they don't like the pictures. So you need to show as much of that house in the very best light that you possibly can. And that's why staging in the pictures, if you're looking at, you don't want to look at a trash can.
That's right.
And you don't want to, because that's all your eye goes to. Your eye goes to the clutter. So once the house is clean, then that photographer comes in and is going to highlight the best features of your homes, the high ceilings, the moldings, the excellent stove. They know exactly what buyers are looking for because that's their job.
Yep, perfect. I think it's well said.
It's an absolute non-negotiable for me.
Me too.
There's no reason to not have.
Why not? Just use your iPhone. Come on.
Well, I actually have a
And
quick
there are a lot on the internet.
Yeah,
Yes.
a quick story here that ties it sort of all together. We had a seller come to us. He had been on the market with another firm for about 6 months. He was priced at $329, and the pictures were horrible. I mean, it was dark. I think it was iPhone pictures. There were windows that had these red sheer curtains that made everything look pink, and all of the blinds were closed. He was priced at $329. The best offer they got during that 6-month period was $273. Wow. That's 83% of that price. We came in, we opened things up, we made sure all the light bulbs worked. We took down those red shears. We lightened things up. We brought in a professional photographer, and we also priced the house correctly. It was priced incorrectly at $329. We repriced it $303. However, within 24 hours, 7 offers later, the house closed at $312.
Wowzers.
So that's 94% of that original $329, so that was a happy seller. It sort of brings everything together, but those pictures brought more people in because they were looking at it online.
Very good. Great story. Great story. So let's kind of slide into our next key step, which is really solidifying your future plan before you sell. So, Karen, what's the first thing you think somebody, if you're getting ready to sell your house and do all this work, what do they really need to do in terms of the future plan?
Well, the first question is, where are you going next? And if they're buying a house next, let's make sure you can buy that house next, that nothing has changed to prohibit you from obtaining a loan. This is when we bring in you, Chris, to be sure that, that our sellers get pre-qualified and pre-approved so that they're comfortable with where they're going to go next.
Absolutely. And simple story, I did have an agent once that he said, I'm getting ready to take this listing, but they want to move. I need you to get them pre-qualified. And the guy was like, oh, yeah, we've got 700 credit scores. It's going to be great. And I said, well, let's just make sure. And sure enough, it was under a 600 credit score. In the 500s. It had gotten, the credit had gone way down. And I called that agent, was really the listing agent, right? Who was eventually going to convert these into buyers down the road. And I said, you know what? I'm so glad you didn't take that listing appointment, because we could have potentially sold that home and then not had a place to move to. So very good. All right. So let's move to the next one, which is what happens if the home sells super fast? How do you deal with that when you're working with your clients, Karen and Erin?
Well, I think before I start, I look at kind of the statistical data to tell me how long that house will probably be on the market. So that gives them an idea. Of course, it can change.
It can vary, sure.
And it can go even faster than what the stats say. But what's next if it sells quickly is just if they are making an offer, is there a contingency? That can be challenging in Charlotte's market if you're staying in this market. And in some other, it kind of depends on where you're going.
If you're selling your home, you don't necessarily want to accept an offer from a buyer that you're waiting for them to sell their home.
Yes.
It's not really a common phenomenon, would you say, or even recommended today?
Well, it's a really hard with our contract because there's a lot of ways for buyers to walk away. And so that's really scary, because if you take a contingency and then they take a contingency, then there are a lot stacked up. So most people are getting a loan, however, so the contingencies are important, but they are typically only taken if the house is already under contract.
Okay. Makes sense. Well, these are all really important aspects to really making sure you know what your plan is even before you really think about selling your home. And our team here is happy to help you with any resources that you might need to make those decisions and really kind of put a solid plan in place. Again, we're talking about preparing your home for sale, 6 key steps here. If you've listened to anything or if you've heard anything that you're interested in and you need to use our team that's here in the studio, my number is 704-277-4463. Again, that's 704-277-4463. Text me and say, I need you, Chris, or I need your team, and we'll hook you up with our professionals here in our studio here this morning. So let's go to the sort of final thoughts, okay, in terms of kind of getting ready to kind of what to expect maybe when the home is on the market and how you work through a couple of those basic components that you thought were good to talk about on the show. So if I get my house on the market, how do people come see my home? How does that work?
So we're fortunate in Charlotte to have a centralized repository for scheduling all of the showings. So a seller can receive a text or a phone call or an email when an agent wants to show his or her home. And they have the ability to approve it very easily via text or suggest another time if that time requested doesn't work. It's very, very simple. And, all buyers need to be accompanied by realtors, and that helps the sellers be very comfortable with who's coming through their house. But it should be a very simple and stress-free process of the appointments.
Perfect. And then I understand that once you know you have an appointment coming, there's obviously things that the seller will need to do to maybe prep for that. And typically you're going to give them a list of suggestions on what to do to prepare. What are just a couple of those?
Absolutely. Just like when we were getting ready for the photography, make sure all of the blinds are open or pulled up. All of the lights are on. The ceiling fans are on. Maybe some nice music playing in the background. I'm not a big fan of the air freshener because I think people feel that's trying to cover something up. But there might be other subtle ways to have nice, fresh smells in the air.
Cinnamon poodles.
It could be. And most importantly, the seller should leave. And if they have pets, take them with them.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Very good. And then I understand after the showing, you're going to get feedback from the person that came to see your home. And that's going to give you some indication as to how prepared your home is and if you need to make some adjustments if possible. So that the centralized showing services gives that kind of feedback from the buyer. So it's really good information. So when you are ready to go and you've gotten these people ready to sell their home, there's a certain step and process that they'll follow. And then hopefully the offers come in, right?
That's exactly right.
Hopefully the offers come in. So we're going to slide over Adam Kuna from National Credit Care. We're kind of rolling with a similar theme, and we're talking now, we're going to shift gears and talk about decluttering and cleaning up your credit, Adam. Awesome.
You got to do it. I mean, just like we were saying, you got to put your best foot forward when you're trying to sell a home, make it as beautiful as possible. That's my job, to make your credit as beautiful as possible.
Sweet. So I understand we'll start with a free credit report, and that's something that anyone that's listening to our show can call me, text me, and get a free credit report, and then we can start the work from there. So what happens once we have the credit report?
Really, I think we need to go do a quick cleaning, if we will, do a scrubbing of what the information says on the report, what's accurate, what's not accurate. There's a lot of things that are inaccurate on our credit reports today. So if we're not...
I see like duplicate accounts that are way old. I mean, stuff on there is like nobody's really monitoring that.
That's my job, is to monitor it, but you got to give me the opportunity. But yeah, I think right now we're saying that over 40 million people in this country have something detrimentally wrong with their credit report. It is not their fault.
Wow.
It's a mistake of a bureau,
I had no idea of that.
mistake of a creditor.
Just 40 million. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to even say that's underestimated. I won't even get into it, but that's a very, very small number as to what we see when we're going over this. But yeah, repair is one of the things that we're doing. We want to make sure that anything that is negative is accurate. And if there is a chance to remove it, any erroneous or negative information, we're going to try and do that with the client, which really helps elevate the score. But we also want to look at positive credit as well. Positive credit weighs a lot more than the negative aspects that we show on our report.
So essentially, you may have some things that need to be cleaned up, but you're also going to say, but here, what can we add? How can we add strength to your credit, maybe with some items that need to be on there?
We got to bolster the score, right? Because repair is one part. Coaching and shaping and molding and building the score to where we're trying to get it to is extremely important.
So that's good, because I think most people just think, oh, they're going to come in and try to take a bunch of stuff off and then my credit's going to be great. But really, in some cases, it's adding new items and establishing some new credit patterns with different types of accounts.
And that's us changing the face. If you're going to call the 1-800 number on the street sign you saw on the intersection, that's all they're going to do. They're going to do things that you could have done yourself, and you're paying somebody to do that. We take this a step further. We're not just looking at the repair. We're also going and uncovering anything that we can do to raise the score in the positive section. And credit cards is one of the biggest things. I know it is holiday time. Everybody's going to be out getting new credit cards at the register so that they can save 15%. Just want to kind of put a footnote out there. Please don't go get new credit if you're trying to apply for a home loan in the first 6 months of next year. It's not the best thing for the credit, so maybe refrain from actually getting that application filled out at the register.
That's true. I appreciate that, because you're right. The holidays are right around the corner, and you go into every store, and it's like, you get this discount, or we give you this free gift. You sign up for this, and we'll save you that savings. And right now, if you get this credit card at 22%, but we're not going to tell you the rate right out of the gate. Sign here.
Yeah,
sign here to save
$6.
Right.
Yeah, so
that comes back.
It's about just looking and knowing what's going on. It does take an expert's eye, I think, is the theme of the day. We do need experts to help us out. And with 6 years of experience, that's what I do. Chris can write mortgages better than anybody in town that I know. So that's how that goes.
I didn't mean to say that. I thought you were going somewhere else with that.
I did too. That's funny.
You're the expert. Go ahead.
We're all the experts. That's why we're here, to help you listeners with getting this straightened out, cleaning up your home, staging it, getting your credit straight, so that everything comes together. This is a huge puzzle, and it does require a team to get to the finish line. So
Perfect.
That's why we're here.
Well, we got to wrap up this show. It's been a great session today. Hopefully you've enjoyed Reshair Radio. I'm just going to throw out there that I know Adam is an expert contributor. He will do a free evaluation of your credit report. It doesn't cost you anything to have a look and let you evaluate. Obviously, if they want to sign up for your services, you can tell them about what those costs are later. But a free evaluation from National Credit Care is awesome. And then we've got two awesome agents, realtors here in the studio that are willing to also do a free consultation. If you're thinking about getting ready to sell your home and you need to get help through the steps that we talked about, make sure you use a professional realtor. Have them come out to your house. So text me, call me, 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. You need any of these professionals to help you, shoot me a text and say, I need you, and I'll make sure that we call you at the beginning of the week and we get you lined up with these professionals. To everyone here today, thank you for a great show.
Go
Thank you so
Panthers.
much,
Go
Chris.
Panthers.
Go
Hope you have a great
Steelers.
week. And thanks, Jen. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned for next Sunday for Reshair Radio. We'll see you then. Have a great week.
Did you know it has been reported that an estimated 80% of Americans have credit inaccuracies on their credit reports? Most people that have either inaccuracies or existing items that can be negotiated or adjusted do not know what their best score could be until they have found a new home, or buying a new car, or applying for a credit card. Then it's too late, and they have to accept a higher interest rate or lose the opportunity altogether. The time to work on improving your credit score is before you need it. Whether you have a 440, 640, or even a 740 FICO score, there is always room for improvement. The National Credit Care Team is comprised of individuals dedicated to helping the millions of consumers plagued by credit inaccuracies, errors, and fraud. It is our mission to help inform consumers and alleviate the stress of working with creditors and credit bureaus. Together, we can maximize your scores to get the best interest rates possible and save you money. Call now, 303-747-6390. That's 303-747-6390. Or visit us at www.nationalcreditcare.com. You've been listening to Reshair with Chris Reshatar, a seasoned licensed mortgage consultant with Movement Mortgage, equal housing lender. Originator license number 117266. Learn more online at themortgagegenius.com.